December 20th, 1873. About 3 miles from Portage, just before dawn, soldiers surrounded the camp of Ho-Chunk leader Big Hawk. Approximately 73 Ho-Chunk men, women, and children were captured and marched on the country roads into Portage. After hours of waiting at the Portage Depot, they were loaded on train cars bound for Sparta, then on to Nebraska, in what would be the last military removal Wisconsin's Ho-Chunk Nation would face. "150 years and 24 days later, we retraced the route they walked on that December day in 1873. As we drive in the footsteps of this forced walk into Portage, hear about that winter in the words of Moses Paquette, a resident of Portage at the time. Moses had spent his entire life in close contact with Ho-Chunk families. His percentage of French ancestry meant that he was not taken that day with his Ho-Chunk relatives. In 1873, there was another attempt to move the Winnebagos from the state. Captain Charles A. Hunt of Melvina, Monroe County, was awarded the contract for removal. There were then about 1,000 of the tribe in Wisconsin, scattered quite generally along the watercourses leading into the Wisconsin and the Mississippi, south of the Black River and Wausau. Captain Hunt sent out runners among the Indians to give them notice to come into Sparta to be shipped to Nebraska. Among these runners were the late John de la Ronde of Portage, George Goodvillage, a Winnebago, of Friendship, Joe Monarchy, another Winnebago from the Yellow River Agency, and Fidelius Poole, who was sheriff of Columbia County in 1871 through 1872. Most of the Indians refused to go. They had had enough of reservation life and the miseries of removal, and proposed to stay where they were until they were forced. Thereupon Captain Hunt obtained military assistance. Big Hawk was one of the chiefs among those Winnebagos who stoutly refused to go, so it was determined to make an example of him. Big Hawk and some 25 or 30 others were holding a feast on the Baraboo River, 3 or 4 miles southeast of Portage. The military surprised the party, surrounded the camp, took away the arms of the Indians, and ordered them to march into Portage. They refused, whereupon Hunt went around among them and clapped handcuffs upon Big Hawk, who made no resistance. The prisoners were then marched into town, surrounded by the military. It was in December, and the roads none the best. I saw them marched into Portage and put aboard the cars amid considerable popular excitement and shipped on to Sparta. Some others were afterwards picked up easily enough on both the Fox and the Wisconsin. As soon as they saw or heard of the troops, they came in peaceably as a rule. In a few cases, however, the troops surrounded the camps and marched the Indians into the nearest railway towns, whence they were shipped to Sparta. In a good many camps, the troops would find only women and children, the men being off on hunting expeditions. In such cases, the women and children were put into sleighs and carried off. The men, upon their return, finding their wigwams deserted and their families gone, would perforce follow and join them. Much hardship was suffered by all of the Indians. Many died on the way, while others expired from exposure after reaching their destination in Nebraska. The attempt at removal was successful as to several hundred Winnebagos, but probably as many more evaded pursuit and remained in Wisconsin. It had been supposed that the Congressional Act of Removal provided that there should be no force used. Certainly the Indians were much surprised and indignant at the appearance of the military. Before their removal, several of the headmen went to Indian Commissioner Edward P. Smith and pleaded for protection for their people, but they did not get it. The Indians had committed no depredations. They were in nobody's way, and all of us who were friendly to them considered the removal as unjust. There came to be much popular indignation over the manner in which this futile attempt was carried out, and since that day, there has been no serious attempts to disturb the Wisconsin Winnebagos, who have so persistently clung to their native woods and streams.